Yo, what up, street togs, stoic togs? This is Eric Kim. Alright, so I just got inspired to do a video, Stoicism for Dummies. So I'm a big dummy, so I wanted to share some basic thoughts. So first and foremost, what is Stoicism? Stoicism comes from the notion of the Stoa, which was like a Greek column or a Greek, imagine like a porch or like a stoop. Like if y'all ever watched Hey Arnold, you know the stoop kid? Imagine a bunch of stoop kids just kind of hanging around and philosophizing about, you know, how to live a good life slash like how to be less afraid of reality and stuff like that. So this is interesting because back then, and now we're experiencing, life was a lot more random, chaotic, unpredictable. It was marred with wars, disease, slavery, conquest, and all that craziness. And so now, in today's crazy world, I think actually Stoicism is actually much more important than ever, because with Stoicism, it essentially makes us invincible to reality. So what do I mean by that? Let me kind of share and explain. So the basic notion is, in a world which is chaotic, unpredictable, and a little bit insane, how are we to live our lives in some sort of meaningful way where, you know, obviously you're not stupid, but at the same time you're not scared of reality, and you could face reality with courage, audacity, and enjoy your life to the fullest. Now, my thought is this. So I'll just kind of outline several practical thoughts and, you know, my experiences, and hopefully you guys could, you know, glean some sort of interesting ideas. So first and foremost, I think it's really important for us to realize death is nothing to us and pain is nothing to us. So what I mean by that, I mean is this. Generally, I think what we're the most afraid of in life is pain and death, the pain preceding the death, and the theoretical pain after death, or the pain associated with death. But once you're dead, you don't feel pain, right? And if you're able to learn how to withstand yourself from pain, then death itself and all that stuff ain't so scary. And also another thing, I think for a lot of us, what kind of scares us is essentially the fear of the afterlife, the fear that, you know, after we're dead, you know, we're just kind of scared what's gonna be there. And my thought is, once you're dead, it just kind of goes blank, ain't nothing there. And what's the pain of dying and what's the fear of dying? It's the same fear and pain associated with never being born, which is something that we cannot control. So there's so much we cannot control in life. So for example, we couldn't control not being born, right? So we didn't ask for our parents to thrust us mercilessly in this world. We came to this world kicking and crying against our own will. So that was the first thing. And now that we're alive, if you're watching this video or whatever, listening to it, you're alive. And you know, that's real. And so now the question comes, how do you want to live your life in a meaningful way that you're not so scared? Because I think fear is, for us, fear prevents us from excelling to our personal maximum. Fear is kind of like, imagine like you're a bird and you have a bunch of leaden weights tied to your ankles. Fear is a weight that's not gonna help, that's gonna hold you down and prevent you from flying to the skies. Now, fear is interesting too, because obviously it has an evolutionary benefit. Those who had zero fear back in the days probably perished a long time ago, because, you know, you're not afraid of the bear is going to eat you alive, and then your genes probably did not reproduce and your fearlessness exited the gene pool. But I'm quite optimistic, where I think that this could be learned via training. Training to me could supersede anything. So, I mean, okay, some basic things, right? A pit bull is probably genetically or biologically more aggressive than, let's say, a chihuahua, but you can still train a chihuahua to be as fierce as a pit bull. The pit bull will probably eat the chihuahua, but that's not the point here. The point is, how do we become like the pit bull? How do we become like the wolf, the eagle, and become more fearless in our everyday lives? So this is my thought. Learn to change your relationship to pain. So obviously there's certain chronic pains which suck, like, you know, pain in your lower back, which could be resolved via doing yoga, not sitting. Like, I don't sit anymore. I'm either walking around, standing, you know, I created a ghetto stand desk at home by putting a roll of tissues, of Kleenex, the Bounty wipes, on top of a plastic bin, and I use my laptop like that. And if I'm tired, I just lie on my back and I take a nap. So for me, it's either I'm standing, I'm doing the Asian squat, or I'm lying on my back. I never sit anymore to the fullest of my extent. So obviously I'll still sit when I'm eating dinner with Cindy, but besides that, try never to sit. And so these kind of chronic pains, these little annoying pains, we can actually get rid of those through exercise, yoga, stuff like that, lifestyle changes. But maybe it's like pain of like, it's just, you know, I think a lot of people experience pain and suffering through like, you know, trauma, like mental trauma, people saying bad things to you or threatening you, whatever. These are things we can actually overcome through mental training. And I'll give you some personal things which has worked well for me. Obviously I cannot guarantee it's gonna work for you, but I'll just share my thoughts. So first and foremost, allow yourself to become an asshole and allow yourself to become egotistical, vain, selfish, effectively what society calls a bad, evil person. And this is the first step. Why? Because when you spend too much of your time trying to be a good, virtuous person, you're essentially placating to the approval of other people in society. And what's the consequence of that? The consequence is you become more generic, you become more scared because the goodness and virtue of your soul is dependent on the opinion of others. And also as a consequence, you live a life less true to yourself and you just essentially become a useful utility or a tool for others in the masses. And you might fall victim to feeling resentment later in your life because, you know, you dedicated your whole life serving others and people aren't as grateful as they should be. And as a consequence, you feel miserable, you feel like your life's been wasted, you're not quite sure why that is, and you just end up taking it on yourself. So now my interjection is this. Live a life where you're totally selfish and egotistical unto yourself, and obviously try to help others as much as you can along the way, but don't make the sole aim of your life to help others, help yourself. And it's very interesting because if I'm totally honest with myself, yo, check out these squirrels. I just stopped running. Yo, check out this view. Alright, we're currently here at Providence Lookout Point. So anyways, let me continue. So the basic notion is, you know, obviously I like to help people and I'm not a total psychopath. I like people, I love others, but ultimately I'm selfish. I'm into myself, I'm very vain, and when I actually help others, it augments my self-esteem, it augments my self-worth, and also augments my ego and my feeling good of myself. Now, whenever people say there's a totally selfless act, I think that's BS. I think even when you help others, even if you don't tell nobody about it, there's this soft glow that we get that we're helping somebody else. And actually, if I'm really honest psychologically, what I think happens is this. When you help somebody else, you see them as inferior to you, and then by bestowing your super abundance or your greatness or your power to them and you see them elevated, you feel good about yourself because you've acknowledged that, one, there's a person inferior to you, and two, by your power and your graciousness, you're able to elevate them close to your level, not quite to your level. So if I'm quite honest about morality and ethics, kind of similar to like what's his name, the French moralist Rochefoucauld or something, I can't pronounce his name. I think this is the real morality which drives people. Yo, check out our homeboy. Oh, let's check out the view. All right, so taking it back to Stoicism for Dummies. So Stoicism essentially, I mean, obviously I'm giving you Eric Kim's version of Stoicism, where the goal is to become hard, strong, severe, focused, and more indifferent to fate. Which means fate could throw whatever at you she wants, but you have the power how to interpret it however you want. And obviously, you know, there are certain things which happen to you which are good, which are bad, but I think the ultimate Stoic is somebody who's strong enough or clever enough or intelligent enough to figure out how to spin every sort of event in his life or her life to his or her advantage. So for example, let's say you lost your job. Obviously that sucks, but what's the hidden good that comes out of it? The hidden good maybe is that you could actually, you know, start to pursue computer science or get another job which is more lucrative. Maybe you've hated that job the whole time, you hated your boss, and now you don't feel so guilty about quitting, whatever it may be. And so there's lots of hidden benefits which come from our misfortunes in life. And I think the sucker mistake is when we tend to think that like, oh, this is good or bad and this is evil, I wish it didn't happen to me. It's like, no, everything in your life did not happen for a reason, but you have the strength and the power to spin it however you want. And so to me, the most logical thing is try to figure out how to spin this to your advantage and kind of have fun with it and don't take it too seriously. So some other thoughts. Realize the point of life. This is why I think. I think the point of life is for us as individuals to augment ourselves to the maximum. So you're an individual, you are you. How can you dedicate your life to becoming the most epic you possible? So let's assume right now you consider yourself like a Squirtle. How can you become a Blastoise? Or, you know, let's say you're playing Diablo 2, you're Paladin. Let's say you're level 50 right now. How do you become level 70? Or 99? Or 200? You know, how can you find the missing no cheat level in Game Boy original version of Pokemon to become like a level 212 Snorlax, whatever it may be. And so I think with Stoicism, essentially realizing that complaining is a form of blaming somebody else, and also it's a form of weakness where when you blame other people, you're essentially saying, oh, I'm not strong enough and the reason I failed is because of other people's downsides, not your own. Yo, check these out. Isn't that a beautiful tree? I love these, yeah, I've never seen such a nice white tree. But anyways, so realize that if you want to become stronger, how do you become stronger? You need hard, difficult, bad things to happen to you to temper you and make you stronger. So for example, you know, you think about like Lord of the Rings or any of these fictitious medieval knight story things or samurai movies, whatever. How do you make the Hattori Hanzo, or how do you make the epic Excalibur sword or whatever? You know, you need to take a piece of steel, adamantine steel or whatever, and you got to pound the shit out of it and you have to use the highest heat possible for it not to melt but still temper it. You know, you mix in certain alloys which are really tough, and this admixture, you need to apply a lot of force to it to harden and cure it. And then once you harden and cure it, then it could become this crazy epic strong sword which could cut through anything. And so maybe you should think of yourself as this hammer or this sword or whatever, that the goal is to become hard, strong, and severe, and to become more indifferent to fate. And whatever life gives to you, you figure out how it can make you stronger and power it to take you to the next level. So for example, you remember Back to the Future where Doc has the DeLorean from the future, and you could pour whatever you want in it to make it run? So same thing is that you take all the misfortunes in your life and turn it into fuel. Lately, I've been really into trees. Isn't that a nice tree? Right? So all these misfortunes in your life, the good and the bad and the ugly, whatever, you could spin this to your advantage. It could turn into your fuel to becoming stronger. And even actually, if you think about it, let's say you want to get super duper buff and ripped or whatever, how do you augment your muscles and stuff like that? You actually need to micro damage or micro tear your muscles in order to stimulate the growth process, the human growth hormones, and then obviously eat a lot of meat to become stronger. So imagine if you're the people from WALL-E who had no difficulty or challenge in their lives, you become these soft human beings, soft and fat and flabby human beings, which I think from aesthetically, I don't consider that very beautiful. I think the most beautiful human is kind of like a combination of a Spartan meets, I don't know, samurai meets, you know, Hercules, Greek god, Achilles meets artist meets thinker meets a little bit of everything. And so if your goal in life is to become stronger, take all these difficulties that you experience in your life and spin it and turn it into a positive. Think to yourself, yo, this shitty thing happened to me, but how has it made me stronger as a consequence? So I think about all the trauma I experienced as a kid. What did it teach me? How not to be a bad person or a shitty person. So even like, my dad, beating my mom mentally and physically, that taught me how not to be a man, right? How not to be a coward, how to treat people with respect, and shaped a lot of my morals and ethics. And kind of to Nassim Taleb's point, one of the best ways you could teach morality and ethics is a via negativa approach, is that you could teach people how to become a good person by teaching people what not to do. And even in my life, the best role models have been the anti-role models, where the people who you consider despicable people, you just do the exact opposite of them in order to become a good, virtuous person. And so even with Stoicism, maybe the goal is for us to not necessarily see bad events in our life as bad things, but actually good things where the goodness of the experiences make you stronger, make you tougher, and they steel you for what comes next. So moving forward in life ain't easy, life ain't roses, and that's what makes it so sweet. Right now I think we're kind of living through war, war with a metaphorical enemy, and you have the power and you have the strength and you have the ability to exhibit your strength, your courage, your determination, your brazenness, your valor. This is your one life to live. Live it the way you want.